Alright, this is Math 060, test number 2 review, and these are problems 28 and 29. There are 4 problems for following the order of operations, but I'm doing them 2 at a time. Alright, so for these 2 problems, this is a fraction, one with fractions, and this is one without fractions. We still follow our adding and subtracting with signed numbers rules. But of course, before you begin on any fraction problem, whenever you're adding and subtracting, you find a common denominator. If you're multiplying and dividing, you would not have to find a common denominator. Alright, so with problem 28, we have to think about the common denominator first. So we have 6, 30, and 5. Well, let's look at the highest number. Is the highest number a multiple of 6 and 5? It just so happens to be. So then that makes it very easy. We don't have to change all these fractions. We just have to change this one, those negative 6/5 and the 3/6 to denominators with 30. Alright, so I'm going to work vertically on these problems. So let's change our, denominators. So we're going to take the first fraction and we're going to multiply this denominator by 5. So that forces us to multiply the numerator by 5. I didn't leave myself much room there. And we have to multiply this by 6 to get 30, and the numerator by 6. Because you always have to multiply the numerator by the same number that you multiply the denominator. So in this case it was 5, in this case it'll be 6. So let's put our new fractions down here. 6 times 5 is 30, so our new fraction for the first fraction is going to change. 5 times 3 is 15, so we have 15/30ths. And don't forget the order of operation that we're doing. We're going to subtract that. We're not going to change this fraction. It already has 30 as a denominator. So we have over 30. And then we have plus, because we are just rewriting the problem with the new fractions. Keep the negative sign. Make a new fraction. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 6 on the numerator is 36. So now we have all new fractions, but we haven't done any of the adding or subtracting yet. So we can do that. Now let's take the first two numbers. We have 15/30 minus 13/30. So when you're doing order of operations, you move from left to right, and you literally try to isolate in your mind just the first two. Ignore this part for now. Just look at the first two, and it is a subtraction, so we follow the rules for subtraction, which is simply changing the subtraction to addition. So when we change to addition, we are changing the addition sign, the subtraction sign to addition, and then we are changing the second number to its opposite. So you must change this positive 13/30 to a negative 13/30. We're just working with these two numbers right now. So when adding fractions, when you find the common denominator and you add the numerators, follow the rules of adding for for numbers with different signs, because these numbers have different signs, and that's find the difference between the numbers, find the difference between 15 and 13. And remembering, we're taking it out of context. We are simply thinking for a moment in our heads that we are going to find, let's choose that too, find the difference between 15 and 13, which equals 2. Okay, so then we have our next step that we have to apply, which is we decide what sign to put on that number 2. So we take the sign of the larger fraction. So we have to decide the larger fraction equals, in this case, 15/30 is the larger fraction, because the larger numerator is what we use when we have the same denominator. So 15/30, the sign on 15/30 is positive. So the difference between 15 and 13, 2, the 2 is positive. So we have a new fraction of, because we added this, 2/30. It's a positive. We found the difference between the numerators, which was 2. Use the sign of the larger number, which is 15. So we have solved this first portion, but we still have this portion of the problem left, all of this. So we pull that down, and we get plus negative 36/30. Alright. Once again, we have addition with numbers with two different signs. So we follow the instructions. Find the difference between the numbers. So find the difference between 36 and 2. Remembering taking them out of context, forgetting for a moment that there's any negative or positive signs, and ignoring the order that we're going in. So it would be, so find the difference between 36 and 2, which equals 34. So we have 34. We just have to decide now, what is the sign going to be on the number 34? Well, we use the sign of the larger number. So the larger number is between these two fractions, 36/30, the larger numerator when you have the same denominator. Okay, so 34 is the difference between those two numerators, and we use the sign of the larger numerator, which is 36, so the answer is negative 34/30. This needs to be reduced because these are two even numbers, and also 34 is larger than 30. So that indicates we have an improper fraction. Improper fractions can be changed to mixed fractions, and they should be. It usually will ask you to do so, to change that. So change the improper fraction to a mixed number or mixed fraction. And how you do that is 30 into 34. Divide the 30 into the 34. If you want, you can also just reduce, and you might be able to understand what the mixed number would be anyway. Well, I can see in my head that the answer is going to be 1 4/30, and we'll be reducing 4/30. Because I know 30 goes into 34 one time, and we'll have a leftover of 4, so it'll be 4/30. And you can do it that way in your head, or you can do the division, which is 30 into 34. You can set it up like that, remembering, and you decide 30 into 34 goes one time, and you can see when you write it out that you have a remainder of 4, and the 4 becomes the numerator, and you keep that denominator that you've had all this time, so it's 1 4/30. But going along this way, we get 1 4/30. Now we can reduce the 4/30, which means we're going to divide both the numerator and the denominator by the same number, and since they're both divisible by 2, So ultimately, the answer is 1 and 2/15. Did we lose track of what sign is on this number? We did, because I did not put it there. Remember that the answer is negative, so the answer down here is negative 1 and 2/15. So now for problem 29. So on this one, we're just going along from left to right, paying attention to one thing at a time, and that's really the key for this one. Let's work one thing at a time. Take the first two and isolate those. You are adding numbers with two different signs. So you find the difference between the numbers. Difference between 6 and 7 is 9. Then you put the sign on the answer of the larger number, and that's 16, so it's positive. Alright, now we have to look at the rest of this. Let's bring it down. Let's take all the rest of this and just write it down, because if you're thinking, or you should be thinking horizontally, as if this is sort of line 1 that you're creating. So let's bring down that subtraction. So 9, we're looking at now just this part of the problem. 9 minus 6. So this is a subtraction problem. We follow the subtraction rules. So we change subtraction to addition. And that subtraction changes to addition, but always remember the next step is the second number goes to its opposite. So we change that to a positive 6. So now we have 9 plus 6. Well, that's easy enough. 9 plus 6 is 15. So we're going to put our answer to that portion as 15. Goodness, it's tough to write this. Now we're going to take the rest of this problem and bring it down as is. We're not going to alter it. Minus. Alright, that's making a second line. So we're looking at, once again, just take it piece by piece. You have to do this first. 15 minus 16. Follow the rules for subtraction. Change to addition. And change the second number to its opposite. The opposite of 16 is negative 16. We have adding signs, adding numbers with different signs. So we find the difference. The difference between 16 and 15 is 1, and we use the sign on this answer of the larger number, remembering that we're taking it out of context. It's the larger number without signs on it, because it's the larger number, absolute value of the larger number. So it's a negative 1. And we're going to take the rest of this. Oh, and this should be red if I were consistent. Yeah, because we're working on that. We got our answer. Now we have to take this and bring it down. And then plus 20. Okay, we're adding numbers with different signs, so we find the difference, which is the difference between 20 and 1 is 19, and take the sign of the larger number, which is 20, and that is our answer. It is a positive 19, so that equals 19. Alright, hopefully that's clear.